Hello, my name's Charles Lees. Although with broken teeth and hair down to my shoulders now, I could probably be described as a wild man from Wally Stone. I've been a Christian for over 40 years, and this is the story of how Jesus came into my life. As a teenager, I was probably an atheist. Never really had a lot of interest, gave it much thought. Couldn't really believe in any living God who had any influence in my life. But when I went to university and started studying chemistry, I realised how vast the universe was and how wonderful the whole creation was, and came to realise that the whole thing was so complex, there's no way it could have happened by chance. But I still couldn't believe that there was a living God who could have any influence in my life. And so I was probably a cynical agnostic. Always wanted to do teaching, and fortunate enough to get a job in teaching in Graham High School in Falkirk, and delighted as a cynical agnostic to find that my new head of department was also a lay preacher, a man called Alistair Noble. And Alistair and I spent hours and hours and hours talking about religion, and nothing he ever said made the slightest bit of difference to me. And then a few years into my teaching career, I had this higher class. Very nice class. There was a little girl in it who, very shy, didn't ask questions in class, but it was always she was struggling a wee bit. So I volunteered to give some extra help. And I used to go along to her house at the weekend, and we'd meet in the front room and we would chat away and try and help her out. But teachers can spend hours and hours talking about the subject, but people find it very boring. So we used to talk for a little while and then have a break and then talk a wee bit more about the subject and so on. And I found out quite a lot about her in these little breaks. Found out that she was a Christian, from a Christian family. One of the little breaks that we had, we were chatting away, and I said to her, I don't smoke, I don't drink, stable family, don't swear, so I'm quite a good person. I said, well, I go to heaven. And she turned to me with the innocence of youth and she said to me, oh no, she said, you won't go to heaven unless you believe in Jesus Christ as the Son of God. And she couldn't have had a more profound influence on me if she had plunged a knife into the middle of my back, because there was a searing pain in the middle of my back when she said that. And I realised that I, the cynical agnostic, was terrified at the prospect of not going to heaven. And I've no idea what she said or what I said for the rest of the afternoon. I came home, talked it over with my wife what had happened, didn't sleep that night at all. When I went in the next day, Alistair could see the difference in me right away. And I explained to her what happened. Still had as many questions, but this time I was much more receptive to the answers she was giving. And started going along to a local Brethren church, which is where this girl and her family went, because the family invited me along to it. And it started a long association in the Brethren, which my wife and I thoroughly enjoyed. With Alistair, I went out every Sunday night. He was preaching all over the country, and I used to go out with him. We met so many wonderful people, so many wonderful Christians, and it let me see an insight into so many different approaches, so many different viewpoints and so on, and probably set me up for the kind of Christian that I am today. If you're watching this and you think that becoming a Christian makes you have a wonderful life with no problems or anything, well, that's certainly not true. I've had a few ups and downs over the years in my Christian life. I'm sure most Christians will tell you the same thing. But to know that God is always there for you is wonderfully reassuring. Do I have all the answers? Well, there's a nice Scottish phrase that will sum up that pretty well. Aye, that'll be right. Do I have questions? Yes, I've still got lots of questions, because it's only by questioning your faith that you can strengthen your faith. But I'll say one last thing in closing. When you take Christ as your answer, questions aren't important anymore.